In golf, a tiny detail can destroy years of preparation. And sometimes, you're not even the one who notices it. Today we'll go through 19 unusual moments that change the course of entire tournaments, situations so absurd and unexpected that they still spark debate. And we'll begin with something recent, an episode that left thousands of fans frozen in front of their screens. No, 19. Royal Portrush, 2025. Shane Lowry returns to the place where, 6 years earlier, he touched glory by lifting the claret jug in front of his home crowd. The atmosphere is perfect, the fans adore him, and he wants to repeat the feat. On the 12th hole, his ball rests in the rough, nothing unusual. Everything seems routine. As he walks away, without the slightest suspicion, thousands of viewers at home have seen something he himself, just centimeters from the ball, didn't notice. The cameras, with a precise close-up, captured a slight movement of the ball during his practice swing. 3 holes later, a rules official stops him. The ruling is merciless. According to the R&A, that movement was caused by his practice swing. Outcome: a 2-stroke penalty. In an instant, Lowry went from fighting for the lead to struggling to avoid missing the cut. All because of a detail invisible to the naked eye, but not to the cameras or viewers. Number 18. Doral Ryder Open, 1991. Paul Azinger had just completed a masterful round, 65 strokes in the opening day. As he left the 18th green, the cameras followed him, the crowd cheered, and he could taste the real possibility of leading the tournament. Everything seemed to be lining up for a dream weekend, until a phone rang more than 3,000 kilometers away. An anonymous viewer, comfortably seated in his living room in Colorado, had spotted something odd in the previous day's broadcast. On the 18th hole, Azinger had played from a water hazard, and, while taking his stance, his foot moved a piece of coral. A tiny detail, but enough to break the rules. Loose impediments cannot be moved in a hazard. The problem wasn't just the infraction. Azinger had already signed his scorecard without adding the mandatory 2-stroke penalty. That, according to the rules, meant automatic disqualification. When he finished his brilliant second round, officials took him to a review room. On the monitor, the moment was recorded with absolute clarity. The coral shifted at the touch of his foot. With no room for appeal, his tournament ended right there. In golf, sometimes a barely noticeable gesture can turn a great result into nothing. Number 17. Abu Dhabi Championship, 2011. Padraig Harrington was having a flawless day. First round, 7 under par, just 1 shot off the lead. The 3-time major champion walked with confidence, ready to fight for another title. But somewhere, far from the desert heat, a viewer holding the remote was rewinding the broadcast. He had noticed something tiny. It happened on the 7th hole green. Harrington marked his ball to prepare a 6-meter putt. As he removed the marker, his finger brushed the ball. The touch was so soft that Harrington himself, checking the alignment mark, swore it hadn't moved. Even his playing partner, Martin Kaymer, saw nothing unusual. However, the sharp eye of a high-definition replay told a different story. The ball moved forward 3 dimples and rolled back 1.5. Under Rule 23A, there would be no issue if it had been replaced exactly in its original spot. But it wasn't. The viewer called the European Tour. The officials reviewed the sequence around 60 times before issuing their verdict. 2 penalty strokes Harrington never recorded. Result: disqualification for signing an incorrect scorecard. In golf, sometimes it isn't your rival who knocks you out of the tournament, but someone who isn't even on the course. Number 16. BMW Masters, Shanghai 2013. Simon Dyson was at a crucial point in his career. After 2 flawless rounds, he was tied for second place at 4 under par. A historic weekend seemed within reach. But on Saturday, before even stepping onto the course, he received the worst possible news. He was disqualified. It wasn't a shot out of bounds or a scorecard signed with the wrong marker. The reason was hidden in the footage from the previous day. and in the sharp eyes of a viewer. On the 8th hole green, Dyson had marked and cleaned his ball. When replacing it, he pressed down with his putter on what appeared to be a spike mark on his line of putt. A gesture that might seem harmless to many, but one that violated Rule 16.1a, which prohibited touching or improving the line of putt. The initial sanction was a 2-stroke penalty, but because he had already signed his scorecard without including it, the result was immediate: disqualification. And the worst was yet to come. The subsequent investigation revealed that Dyson had performed this action on more than one occasion. The consequence: a £30,000 fine and a conditional 2-month suspension for unsportsmanlike conduct. In golf, precision isn't measured only in meters, but also in the cleanliness of every gesture. Number 15, Tournament of Champions, Kapalua 2011, Hawaii. Bright sunshine, Pacific breeze, and one of the most beautiful settings in professional golf. For Camilo Villegas, however, that idyllic scene was about to become the worst birthday gift of his life. On the 15th hole, he faced an impossible slope up to the green. First attempt, the ball climbed and rolled right back to his feet. Second attempt, exactly the same. It was as if the ball itself were saying, "Not today." Frustrated, and while the ball was still in motion, Villegas brushed away some loose blades of grass in front of his divot with his club. A minimal, almost automatic gesture, likely one he didn't think twice about. But it didn't escape those watching from home. Several viewers alerted the officials, and upon reviewing the footage, it became clear. He had violated Rule 23-1, which prohibits removing loose impediments while the ball is moving. The penalty: 2 strokes. The problem: Villegas had already signed his scorecard without adding them. Thus, on the day he was supposed to celebrate his 29th birthday, the Colombian received a single gift from the tournament: a ticket home. Number 14, R.R. Donnelly LPGA Founders Cup, Phoenix 2013. Stacy Lewis was putting together a great tournament. In the 3rd round, she closed with a brilliant birdie on the 18th hole, convinced she would head into Sunday just 2 shots behind the leader Ai Miyasato. The strategy was perfect. Everything set to attack in the final round. But miles away, a professional caddy was watching the broadcast from a bar and saw something he couldn't ignore. On the 16th hole, Lewis had consulted her caddy, Travis Wilson, about the conditions of the sand in a fairway bunker. Upon stepping in, Wilson made a slight bounce with his foot, a nearly imperceptible gesture, but one that, according to the rules, constituted a violation. The call came quickly. In the scoring tent, officials reviewed the slow-motion replay and confirmed the breach of Rule 13-4, testing the condition of a hazard. Penalty: 2 strokes. In an instant, Lewis went from 2 shots of the lead to 4. However, what could have been a devastating blow became fuel. That victory also propelled her to number 1 in the world rankings. In golf, the rules can hold you back or push you toward history. Number 13, the Masters. Augusta Nacional, 2013. Augusta, the most sacred stage in golf. Friday, 15th hole. From 87 yards, he fires straight at the flag. The shot looks perfect until it strikes the flagstick and ricochets dramatically into the water. Tiger chooses to play again from a spot near the original position, instead of using the designated drop zone. He hits the shot, makes bogey, signs his card, and heads to speak with the media. Everything seems normal. Until, in Florida, respected rules official David Eager notices something odd in the broadcast. At the drop location, there is a fresh divot, farther back than it should be. He knows the rule. The ball must be dropped as close as possible to the original spot. The suspicion is confirmed when, in an ESPN interview, Tiger himself admits he stepped back 2 yards deliberately to avoid another impact with the flagstick. On Saturday morning, Masters officials summoned Tiger to the clubhouse. Instead of disqualifying him, they apply Rule 33-7, adding a 2-stroke penalty and allowing him to continue competing. That episode remains one of the most controversial moments in Masters history. Number 12. Safeway Classic. Oregon, 2010. Julie Inkster, a Hall of Famer, was playing a brilliant tournament. At 50 years old, she had carded a 67 inches the second round, moving to 8 under par, just 3 shots behind the leader, Ai Miyasato. Until she arrived at the 10th tee and ran into a logjam, a 30-minute wait before playing. To stay loose, Inkster grabbed a 9-iron, attached a weighted training ring, the type used to maintain swing tempo, and began making practice swings. A common action during training, but during competition, it's illegal. Somewhere, a viewer saw it on the broadcast and knew Rule 14-3 perfectly. The use of training aids during a competitive round is prohibited. The call to officials came quickly. Inkster didn't learn of the infraction until the 17th hole, when officials intercepted her as she walked off the green. The sanction was immediate: disqualification. In a matter of seconds, she went from fighting for the title to being out of the tournament. In golf, even in moments of waiting, the rules never rest. Number 11. The Players' Championship, TPC Sawgrass, 2021. Viktor Hovland had just posted a solid 70 inches the opening round. On the screen, Mom. From Norway, Galina wasn't calling to ask how he was doing or whether he had eaten enough. Her first sentence was direct. Are they going to penalize you for what happened on the 15th? Hovland, confused, had no idea what she meant. But his mother had seen everything, live, and thousands of kilometers away. On the 15th green, Viktor moved his ball marker one putt ahead to avoid interfering with Justin Thomas's line. The problem came when replacing it. He moved it one putter head further in the same direction, leaving the ball farther from its original position. In other words, he played from a wrong place. Neither he nor his caddy remembered the mistake. But Galina, with a sharp eye, was certain. Video review confirmed the breach of Rule 14.7, 2 penalty strokes. Thanks to modern rules, there was no disqualification, but his 70 became a 72, and he missed the cut by exactly 2 shots. In this case, Mom's call brought no comfort, only the premature end of a tournament. Number 10. CME, Group, Title Holders, Naples, 2012. Sun Young-yu was just 1 shot behind the leader when she reached the 14th tee. She tried to escape with a 5-iron, but the ball ended up in an even worse position. With no option, she declared the ball unplayable, accepted a 1-stroke penalty, and prepared to drop it. Everything seemed normal. She set up, extended her arm, and released the ball. She played the hole and continued her round without further concern. But somewhere, a viewer watching Golf Channel noticed a tiny detail. Yu's arm wasn't fully extended at shoulder height, as the rule at the time required for a legal drop. That viewer decided to act. He sent a message to the LPGA through Twitter. Result: an additional 1-stroke penalty for an improper drop. In golf, even the height at which you drop the ball can decide your fate. Number 9. Avantha Masters, New Delhi, 2012. Peter Whiteford was living the best week of his career. He led the tournament after the second round and, in the third, reached the 18th tee just 1 shot off the lead. His first European Tour victory was within reach. On his approach shot to the green, something happened. Or maybe it didn't. As he addressed the ball, Whiteford felt a slight doubt and asked his companions, "Did the ball move?" The players, the officials on site, and everyone around agreed. They hadn't seen anything. He continued, finished his round, signed his card, and left satisfied, ready for the final day. But overnight, the armchair police acted again. Several viewers contacted the European Tour, claiming that, on television, the ball clearly appeared to have moved on the 18th. Video review confirmed the infraction. He should have replaced the ball before playing. The penalty was 1 stroke, but since he had already signed an incorrect scorecard, the punishment became disqualification. In less than 24 hours, Whiteford went from being close to glory to being out of the tournament. No. 8. Indonesia Open, 2005. Colin Montgomerie arrived in Jakarta with a clear mission. He needed a top 3 finish to break into the world's top 50 and qualify for the Players' Championship. In the second round, his approach on the 14th hole ended in the worst possible place. A deep bunker, with the ball perched right on the edge. Monty spent several minutes trying to find a viable stance. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, nothing felt stable. The shot looked doomed. Then, a lightning storm interrupted play. The horn sounded, forcing evacuation of the course, and Montgomerie left the ball where it was without marking it. The next morning, when play resumed, the ball was gone. According to the rules, he had to replace it, with help from his fellow competitors, to estimate the original position. But the replacement appeared in a noticeably more favorable spot, outside the bunker, with a comfortable stance. From there, he played a precise shot, saved par, and eventually finished 4th, securing the ranking points he needed. Everything stayed quiet until the broadcast footage surfaced. The difference in placement was obvious. Montgomerie admitted the mistake, donated the £24,000 prize to charity, but kept the ranking points. Some fellow players, like Sandy Lyle, openly called it cheating. The controversy lasted for years, with Monty insisting it was an unintentional error. Whatever the case, that shot opened the door to the Players' Championship. Number 7. BMW PGA Championship, Wentworth, 2012. Graeme McDowell was having a solid day on a course that had rarely treated him well. The opening round looked good, and he was on track to finish under par. But on the 18th hole, his drive ended up in a tricky spot, among trees and on a bed of dry leaves and branches. While assessing the shot, the ball resting in an unstable position did what sometimes happens in those lies. It rotated just a fraction, almost imperceptible to anyone standing there. The rules, however, are strict. If the ball moves after the player has addressed it, and there was more, because he did not replace the ball exactly in its original position before hitting it, another penalty was added, 2 strokes in total. No one on the course thought much of it. But a sharp-eyed viewer at home alerted officials even before the broadcast finished reviewing it. The result? McDowell went from a controlled round to a 74, closing with a triple bogey on the final hole. As he said afterwards, it was a perfect example of the impossible rules and their oddities in golf. Number 6. BMW Championship, Conway Farms, 2013. Tiger Woods appears on this list again, and this time with an episode that left him visibly furious. In the second round, his approach shot on the first hole ran past the green and ended in an area full of branches and loose debris. Tiger began clearing loose impediments. First a large branch, no issue. Then a small stick right next to the ball, which he brushed aside with his club. That's when it happened. To Tiger, it was merely an oscillation, a tiny movement that left the ball in the same place. A PGA Tour production crew member, reviewing the recording, spotted the movement and reported it. Before Tiger signed his card, Slugger White, the tour's head rules official, called him in to review the replay together. After several viewings, Tiger insisted the ball had not changed position. White, on the other hand, concluded that it had shifted and had not been replaced. The ruling: 1 penalty stroke for causing the movement and another for not returning the ball to its original spot. His double bogey on that hole turned into a quadruple bogey. The 70 on his card became a 72. Number 5. British Masters, England, 2005. Miguel Ángel Martín, a seasoned Spanish player on the tour, was trying to salvage a difficult round. At the British Masters, his ball settled in an awkward spot, surrounded by trees and thick vegetation, a common sight on British courses. As he prepared to hit, he had to pay attention to every detail of his stance. The ground was uneven. The branches hung low, and right where he needed to place a foot stood a small young tree, little more than a thin stem. Martín did what many would do. He set his foot on it to steady himself. The stem bent under his weight, He hit the shot and carried on. But at home, a viewer did not ignore the action. He knew Rule 13 too well, which prohibits improving stance or swing area by bending or breaking any growing element. He called the officials, who reviewed the footage and confirmed the breach. They determined that Martin could have avoided stepping on the tree by seeking a different stance. The consequence was automatic. Because he had signed his card without adding the penalty strokes, disqualification was applied. A gesture lasting barely a second, enough to end his tournament. Number 4. Tournament of Champions, California 1980. In one of the earliest recorded occasions in which viewers at home influenced a professional tournament, the setting couldn't have been better. The Mooney Tournament of Champions at La Costa, with only 29 players and 2 golf legends in the same group, Tom Watson and Lee Trevino. There was the final round, perfect weather, and the cameras captured every shot. Walking down the fairway, Watson noticed something about Trevino's setup over the ball. Naturally, and as a friendly gesture, he suggested a small adjustment to his stance. An innocent piece of advice, common in casual rounds. From home, a viewer with deep knowledge of the rules recognized the infraction instantly. Rule 8-1 is clear. During a competitive round, a player may not give any advice to an opponent. The result: a 2-stroke penalty added to Watson's score at the end of the round. Luckily for him, his lead was so large that even with the penalty, he won the tournament by 3 shots. Even so, it stood as a reminder that in golf, even courtesy can come at a price. Number 3. Andy Williams Open, Torrey Pines 1987. Craig Stadler was playing the 3rd round when his drive on the 14th hole ended up beneath a huge Lambert cypress. The branches hung so low that a normal swing was impossible. So he turned to creativity. He decided to hit the shot from his knees. There was a problem. The grass was soaked from the previous night's rain, and Stadler was wearing immaculate turquoise trousers. To avoid getting them dirty, he placed a towel on the ground, knelt down, and knocked the ball back to the fairway. He finished the round strongly and, the next day, after a birdie on the final hole, moved into a tie for 2nd place. But then NBC aired a highlight package showing the kneeling shot. From home, a viewer immediately recognized the violation. Rule 13-3, building a stance. Officials reviewed the footage and confirmed the breach. Penalty: 2 strokes. And since he had already signed his card without including them, the consequence was disqualification. What began as a display of ingenuity ended as a sudden, painful exit from the tournament. Number 2. US Open, Oakmont 2016. Dustin Johnson was 2 shots behind the leader, Shane Lowry, in the final round of the US Open. On the 5th green, one of the fastest and trickiest surfaces in the world, he prepared for a short putt. After a couple of practice swings, he addressed the ball, but something didn't feel right, so he backed off. That's when it happened. The ball moved barely a millimeter. Johnson immediately called referee Mark Newell, insisting he hadn't caused the movement. His playing partner, Lee Westwood, confirmed his account. At Oakmont, a gust of wind could easily move a ball. The referee agreed. No penalty. Continue from the new position. Case closed. Or so it seemed. 7 holes later, on the 12th tee, the USGA called him again. After reviewing the footage, they suspected the movement might have occurred when he placed his putter next to the ball. From that moment on, Johnson had to play the final 7 holes of the US Open, not knowing whether he would receive a stroke penalty at the end. He ultimately won the tournament by 3 shots. Only afterward did they confirm the 1-stroke penalty. The controversy was so great that in 2019, the USGA and the R&A changed the rule. No more penalties for accidentally moving a ball on the green. Thus was born the Dustin Johnson rule, the result of an episode as strange as it was influential.